All right, so just for information, we do not yet have a quorum for our Budget and Finance Committee meeting. So as soon as we have another council member log on, a couple council members had indicated that they may be delayed. So we will start as soon as we have quorum. Okay. Councilmember Gabi, are you still there?
Yeah, Marfu, yeah, I'm here.
I'm here. Sorry, I apologize for being late.
Sorry,
That's fine.
Councilmember Swarthout is also late, so, but we do now have quorum, so Councilmember Gabi, are you ready for me to start the meeting?
Okay.
All right. So we now have quorum, so I will now call the meeting of the Friday, February 25th, 2025 Tumwater Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. So we have Councilmember Althauser, Councilmember Agabi, and Councilmember Swarthout will be joining us soon. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for March 28th?
So moved.
Yes.
Do you second, Councilmember
Yes,
Agabi?
second. Yes, second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes have been approved. Our finance director, I think, will go ahead and start on our first item, which is the monthly financial update. So Troy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, council members. And I hope you're all enjoying this nice sunny afternoon. Give me a second while I share my screen. Put it in presentation mode. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll jump right in. This one isn't super long. It's similar to what we've done before. So we'll go over some of our key revenue streams year to date and how those are doing and have a little discussion on that. And we'll start with general fund. So in February, when we did this, you may recall I prorated some of these things due to timing and when we received these revenues. I didn't do that as much this time because we're getting further into the year. Things are starting to normalize a little bit. But I will point out right off the bat, of course, property tax, as we've discussed, we don't receive our first big chunk of property tax until April. We haven't received it yet. And so when you look at these numbers, a budget of just over $10 million, only $214,000 received so far, and we're 33% into the year. That looks really bad if you looked at it without context, but next month when we give you this report, that will look much, much better. It may not be the full half. I remember when I was looking at this the last couple of years, expecting April to come and we'll have half of our property tax received. Sometimes April is a little bit less than half and then more trickles in over the summer. And then we get our big final half of it, or perhaps even more than half in October. So just a timing thing there. Let's see, sales tax. You may recall, I think it was the March meeting where the day of the Budget and Finance Committee, I received from the state treasurer a report that showed the money that we just got. And so I was able to kind of weave that in. It's too early in the month. We have not received our big state tax distribution yet. So no April sales tax included on here, which also makes it look a bit low. I think it's probably, I'm speculating a little here. I think it's probably a little bit below the 33.3%, for year to date compared to where we are in the year, but not too much.
Troy, I'm going to interrupt you for just one moment and recognize the fact that Council Member Swarthout has joined us. So I just want to do that for the record.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. B&O tax. What I wanted to point out here, this is pretty close. We're still not to the end of the month yet. And I did just want to point out that businesses have options when paying their B&O tax. Some businesses pay quarterly. So we may not, we only receive 4 times a year their distribution. Others pay monthly. And so that one just is a little variable. Utility taxes, we've talked before that that's always kind of a month behind. So you use water and sewer in January, The bill doesn't go out until February 1st, and then end of February, we get the payment. And so that's really not concerning. Building permits, I did this a little bit different this month than last time. The last report, I took 3 or 4 building permit kind of categories and lumped them together. This time I did just purely building permits. And as you can see, the revenue there is at 77% of the budget, but we're only 33% through the year. And so that's indicates that building permit activity remains high, high and higher than expected, which is a good thing. We don't always see the benefits from that right away. Of course, it takes time to build things, and then the next year or 2 years we receive taxes from the new construction, and then depending on what's being built, say if it's a retail business, then we start receiving sales tax, and so. Anyway, that's a good strong sign. On the TMPD, when I was going through this one is prorated, and I'm going to show you a slide in a couple slides, because when I was looking at this one this time, I saw that 695,000, and it kind of struck me like, well, wait, we get a lot more money than that for the TMPD. And so what this number is this is the, let me pause and back up just a little bit. For the TMPD, we keep that in a separate fund for tracking purposes, because it's restricted. Can only be used for parks and park maintenance and things like that. So the way we do that to keep everything clean and easy to track and transparent is the general fund pays for all the expenses up front. And then towards the end of the year, we will reimburse the general fund for eligible costs from the TMPD fund. And so this 695,000, that is not all the revenue that's going to be collected this year. That is just the revenue that we anticipated reimbursing the general fund with. I hope that makes sense. If that's confusing, let me know and I can try a different way. And so in a couple slides, I'll show you the actual revenue that's budgeted for the whole year, as well as what we've received so far. And that'll be the same for the Transportation Benefit District as well. Some of these other categories that include grants, like the next line down is the Commerce grants. Those grants the money hasn't been spent on projects, therefore we haven't received the revenue back yet. So that's a timing thing, nothing to worry about there. I did prorate the transfers. Public safety sales tax, that one's looking pretty good. I kind of noted as I was going through this, the regular sales tax, again, haven't received April yet, but so year to date, we've received 22% of the regular sales tax. The public safety sales tax, that's that Prop 1 money that we track in a different fund. We've received 28% of that. And I thought, well, those should be about the same. And I figured out, I believe what that is we budgeted $940,000 a year in revenue, because that's what the county had estimated for us for our first full year of revenue collections for that fund. So I suspect what's going on is we're just collecting more than that, and that's why that percentage is higher than the regular sales tax. Okay, and then that last line down here, Parks and Rec, you may recall from the last presentation, their revenue was really low because it was, it's January, February, March, not a lot of activities going on yet. Now with spring is here, and people are signing up for sports and paying fees and things like that, and so that revenue is coming along. Move over to the expense side, and we've got the general government line that's kind of the support departments, legislative, executive, non-departmental, finance, HR, and legal. So 33% through the year, expenses are at only 27%, so that's good. Pretty similar story with all these departments. I just picked out some of the largest ones. Police at about 25%, fire at about 30, transportation engineering down at 20, and so on for community development and parks. So expenses are lower than budgeted, so that's never bothers me. This is the slide I was talking about at the beginning. So this is the actual revenue from the funds for the Transportation Benefit District and for the Tumwater Metropolitan Parks District. So the TBD, the total budgeted revenue is $2.3 million. Actual received year to date is $580,000. And on a side note, you're probably all aware, but the TBD vote did pass, so we'll have that for another 10 years, which is really great news for the city of Tumwater residents and all of our roads. If we look down at the Tumwater Metropolitan Parks District at the bottom, the total revenue projected to receive is just under $2 million. Actual is only 69,000. However, that one is property tax based. So as we talked about with regular property tax, we'll receive more of that sometime this month. Move over to the utilities. Start with water. Again, these are, we talked about this last time, but these are the budgeted revenues and expenses are much higher this biennium than in prior bienniums, and that's due to some very large capital projects that we have in the budget. And so it makes it look like the revenue and expenses are really low. And actually, I'm going to, I have a little surprise at the end, not much of a surprise, but basically just take the capital projects out so we can have a better idea how the utility itself is doing, because the revenues are anticipating bond proceeds when we finance those projects. And of course, the expense will be paying the contractors for building the things. So similar story with sewer, but sewer, you'll notice these percentages are a lot bigger, which surprised me. So I looked into that, and we've actually had quite a few connection fees for sewer that really bumped that revenue up quite a bit. And so that was interesting to see. It also does bump the expense up a bit because we have to share those connection fees with LOT, so we don't get to keep all the money. So some of it's all revenue, and a lot of it's also expense. To storm and then golf. Storm looks a little similar to water, where it's things are clicking along. Revenues are ahead of expenses. The percentages look low, but that's again because of capital projects. Golf, from the last time we met, golf's looking better on those percentages. We've been seeing better weather, longer days, and we do have a little bit of a kind of like with our state revenues, but not quite as bad. Golf is, it's in a different location. It takes a little bit of time from the time they receive money. Oh yes, Councilmember Althauser.
I was just going to ask if the expenses for golf here include the debt service, which is likely, aren't we done with that pretty soon, like next year or the year after?
Yeah, I think this is the last year.
This is the last year. But, and so under total expenses here, that does include the debt service that we pay down.
I don't think that does yet. It would be in the budget, but not in the actual yet.
These are operating expenses rather than capital expenses associated with the golf.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
There in the budget, there are a few small capital items, but they haven't been done yet, so it doesn't show up in the actual yet. So on the revenue side for golf, they're, again, different location. They use a different computer system. And so I'd say there's at least a week lag time between when golf is taking in money, that money gets taken to the bank, the information comes to the finance department, and then we have to add that into our main financial system. And so I know the golf course has been really busy with this really nice weather, and so I think that revenue's even quite a bit higher by now, and we'll see if the weather continues. Okay, and this is the last slide for this piece of the presentation. And what I did here is just to make this look more like a normal year, is I took the big capital projects out, took the bond financing out, and to kind of normalize the revenue and expenditures. There's still, for water, still not quite at that 33%, but again, the billings for water revenue, for all the utility revenues are always a month behind. And also the expenses are lower than the revenues. So we like to see that. And then on the sewer, again, those percentages are much higher because of all those extra connection fees that we've had. So that's all I have on this portion for you, and I'll stop sharing to see if there's any questions. Oh, you're muted, Madam Mayor.
Well, I clicked on it, it didn't turn on. So is there any additional questions? This is good. I think we're getting accustomed to this report and how to understand it. I think that having monthly meetings helps us to review this as opposed to quarterly, because it takes a while for everybody to get up to speed of how this all works. So I appreciate that. All right, next item. Troy is going to have a one-person show here today. Community Human Resources Program funding.
Okay, so for this one, I don't have a presentation, but just wanted to have a brief discussion and let you know kind of what our plan is. So as you recall, we talked about the Community Human Services Program before at one of these meetings, and then we also talked about it at a council work session, and got quite a bit of feedback. We went back between Brittany and Karen. They've kind of figured out how to streamline the process a little bit to make it a little easier for staff and a little easier for the people or organizations applying for the money. And so we're at the point now where we're ready to basically open the application process. And so we're hoping to do that on May 1st. It would be open for the month of May, and at the June Budget and Finance Committee meeting, we would have the presentations and make the decisions. And I'll come back to that meeting here in just a moment.
And that would probably be in person more than likely with presentations.
Up to you guys, but probably that's how we did it before, I believe.
Yeah, I think last year it was in person. Okay.
Well, let me before I go to the questions, let me pause there. Because as Brittany and I were talking about this actually just this morning, we realized two things. I let her know that I will be traveling to a conference on the June scheduled date for this, which is June 27th. And then Brittany pointed out that the AWC conference runs through the 27th also. And I think the last day is probably only a half day, but I doubt anyone that's attending the conference wants to attend a half day of conference and then go to their car or hotel room and jump on a Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
Well, not only that, we would be checked out of our room by then anyhow. So.
Right. Yeah. So I guess one of the decision points maybe we don't need a decision today, but at least start thinking about it is, do we want to? We could wait until the July Budget and Finance Committee meeting to do the presentations and the decisions for Community Human Services, or we could set up a special meeting on a different day in June to have that meeting.
So I guess what we'll do is just have everyone look at their calendar for June and see which works better. And then we can make that decision shortly. Councilman, Administrator Parks, did you have something?
Yeah, either of those options is great, and if the council isn't able to find time that works for a budget and finance committee meeting to be rescheduled, that's also, that's awesome. It is, we are getting lots of questions from people because we are behind, our typical timeline for this money. Only because we've been trying to make these process improvements. So if there is a way at all for us to reschedule and have it happen sooner than the end of July, that would be likely preferable to the people that would like to use the money for their different programs.
Yeah, and I had actually looked and thought, well, what is the next Friday? That won't work because that's the 4th of July. So, so we will have to, we can kind of look at that and see, maybe we'll do it a week earlier. We can discuss that.
Yeah, and so give that some thought, reach out to Brittany, or I'll let Brittany know to reach out to all of you to see what might work for that. And we'll get that scheduled. And then so for the other feedback we were hoping to get, so when we open it up on May 1st, when we had the discussion at the work session, there was not quite consensus about, we talked about, should we make 3 awards of $5,000, or should it be 4 awards or 5 awards? And it was a little mixed. I don't think we had consensus. But so the question is, do we want to say something in the when we open this up? Do we want to say something about the amount of the awards? There was confusion last time we opened it up. One applicant thought they might get the whole $15,000. That was never our intent. So we kind of want to say something, but we also don't want to tie your hands, not having seen the applications or had the presentations. And so it's certainly up to you all when you hear those presentations, what you want to do. We just, I guess, looking for, do we want to say awards could be as much as $3,000 per applicant or something like that to just give the applicants a little information and kind of set some expectations.
Yeah, I think that would work. And then also stating that it's possible that not all applicants would be funded either. So that there is an expectation that, if we get 15 applicants, we're not giving them $1,000 a piece. So, how is that going to work? So I would just say putting in the expectation that not all applications will be funded, or all requests will be funded also.
Okay, that sounds good. We can wordsmith that, and so we can, and the materials are ready, so we can go ahead and play with that wording and then open that up on May 1st.
And Mr. Praxi, you popped on. Did you have something additional?
No, I just think that's a wise thing to do, and indicate, no individual award more than X amount of dollars, $2,500, $3,000, and then indicate that not all applications will be funded that's managing expectations.
Right.
Okay. So that's all I had on that topic. So I don't know if there's anything else on the agenda or not, but
There is.
There is.
okay.
The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2025-006, amending TMC 2.14, execution of contracts and other legal documents.
Yes. So this is coming back to you after the last meeting, because we had a conversation about this and there was some hesitancy with moving forward with this project. Really, as a reminder, the intent of this ordinance change is to create some efficiencies in terms of relatively routine actions by delegating the authority to take those actions to the mayor and directors. So I think what Karen is not here today. She's at a conference. But she did prepare some materials where she actually took the actions, the three types of agreements that we understood were of most concern were interlocal agreements, grant agreements, and then there were some specific financial audit actions that are required by the council, although I don't know that there was necessarily a concern over those, but we put them in here. So what she was able to do is to take all of the 2024 documents and then categorize them for you so you could see with the ordinance written the way it is. Here is this MOU that we did that would have gone to the council regardless of this new language, and here's what would not have. So I'm going to share my screen here as a moment. Theoretically. There we go. So are you seeing a list? Would go to
Yes.
council? Okay. So first of all, what Karen identified was the interlocal agreements or the memorandum of understanding. And these are separated into those things that we took action on in 2024 that with the new language would have still gone to council even if this new language were in place, including amendments to those agreements, and then which items would not. So by way of example, and I think this is, she tried to put the actual agreement as well as the dollar amount, because this is really the distinction between what would continue to go to council and what would not is based primarily on dollar amounts. So for example, the Community Development Block Grant Program, you remember we signed an interlocal agreement with Thurston County to amend the way in which we participate in that CDBG, those CDBG entitlement funds. That that constituted an agreement that included millions of dollars. So in that case, that would still have gone to the council regardless of this language change that's being promoted. So you can see the list of items here. The Olympia Tumwater Cares Program, that's the interlocal agreement with the city of Olympia to share the CARES staff person in the fire department. That's worth $140,000. So that still would have gone to the council. Karen also identified amendments to interlocal agreements that we processed during the year last year. So a couple of those examples, we have an interlocal agreement with the port for the HCP development. We have the advanced life support amendment with 30,000 with Thurston County Medic One. There were the SWAT paramedic amendment, which was a pretty minor amendment. You can see here the list of things. These are amendments that still would go to council. What she also pointed out, though, is there are 3 of these: the Franz Anderson, the HCP with the port, and then the basic life support funding agreement with Thurston County. With minor clarification to the amended language, those might be amendments that could have not necessarily needed to go to council. And then along the same lines then, so these are the interlocal agreements and or I think and amendments that would not have necessarily gone to council based on this proposed language. So the lot Henderson property purchase, that was a due diligence MOU. There was no dollar amount associated with that. It was a timing thing. We have the I think that's supposed to be MOU with the Squaxin Island Tribe for emergency services for $2,500 a year. That would not have gone. There's some property on 93rd Avenue where there was an MOU with the Confederated Tribes of Chehalis that wouldn't have gone. So you can kind of see the nature of these agreements. So if there are any questions about those and those amendments, yes, Councilmember Swarthout.
Thank you. Would those amendments, so this information would still go on?
You're having feedback a little bit.
Oh,
I think
sorry, I don't, yeah, I gotta fix that.
It was actually Charlene was unmuted inadvertently, so I think we're good now.
And will this go on, if we don't, would it still go on a consent calendar? Would it still be like noticed as an agenda item if we don't have to approve it? How, or is it just doesn't show up?
It wouldn't show up, you know, I would assume, and unfortunately Karen's not here, but I would assume, you know, the ordinance could be amended that, you know, we could be, staff could be obligated to inform the council of these kinds of decisions. I think, you know, generally, again, the idea is these are pretty routine and they generally are not going to be costs. I think $100,000, I believe, was the maximum amount of value associated with any of these that would be required, over which they would be required to go to council.
I was kind of concerned after our last council meeting when Councilmember Delhop asked a question, because, you know, we've forgotten that particular, you know, whatever the statute, she was asking about a statute, and that, you know, we weren't part of it. And you kind of forget when you pass these things years ago, and then it's like, oh, okay, you know, we thought we got to see this, and then you don't remember because it was passed, you know, so long ago. And so those of us who don't have a perfect recall, like Mayor Pete, I don't know how to, yeah, or Councilmember Althauser. So yeah.
Councilmember Agave?
Thank you. The only problem that I see with this is that in trying to determine if the amount of the contract is the trigger with which that item will go to council is all over the place. So therefore, as I see this example, the amount of money is not necessarily determined what goes to council, but the intent of the amendment itself. That's at least in my the way I say it is what determines. So I think this is going to create confusion. So I think what we could do then is just say, in as much as it does not involve any dollar amount, like an MOU, just to an MOU to for I don't know, for a property that at that point in time there's money is not being discussed yet. That could be something that that this would be useful for. But if it involves money, I don't know how we get past that.
Okay.
Councilmember Althauser.
Thanks. Can you scroll down a teeny bit to look at the amendments section? Yeah, like I think most of these in the amendments section are great examples of things where like the briefings we do in like the committees last like 2 minutes, and then we approve it and ratify it, and it goes to, like, those are very administrative in nature and are fine. I think the example that I'm concerned about on this page is like the ILAs for the climate mitigation initiative and for the regional environmental education programs. Like those ILAs are things that I think it behooves the city to have a public discussion about, things like the climate elements and the updates and stuff, Energize Thurston, because for those things, kind of having that public airing and that discussion is a way that we're notifying the public of the good work that we're doing in those spaces, and not having those aired in a public setting, I think is a bit concerning to me still. Like I think that my biggest concern is that most of the ILAs that we do are pretty substantive. There's like revisions here and there pushing out timelines and things, and I think those are fine to where, like, if it's purely administrative, but a lot of these do involve some meaty policy we either have opinions about, or I do think it is our duty to weigh in on. So I'm okay with like some of these things, but the notion of all ILAs under $100,000 is not a concept that I'm comfortable with at this point in time, just because I think it is good that we discuss those things, because I'm really proud of them. I think that the public does benefit when we have a public discussion about some of them. So I don't know if maybe there's like a much lower dollar threshold, or if we exempt ILAs from this. Like MOUs might be a little bit different than these things, but a lot of the ILAs on this list, I think are important ones that do warrant discussion. At least that's what I'm currently sort of feeling about this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Swarthout, did you have another?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Michael. Thank you for calling that out, because anytime we can talk about the climate and just showing our progress, that we are doing things that just I think really helps the public and as well as our council to show what we, the progress that we are making. So thank you for pointing that out and calling that out. There's a way to single it out that ILAs were climate issues, will go to council. So.
Right. That makes sense. So, what can we take a look at the grants and then the audit ones too, so that we can kind of get a better feel for that? So, grant agreements are obligating in many cases, unless they're like an IPG, are obligating the city to expend resources that are a match. And so, that's where the obligation to bring it to council comes from primarily. So the 2024 grant agreements that would have gone to council, would still have gone to council in spite of this language, are those that are shown here. So our GMA grants, the rebate program, the brownfield assessment grant, including, and I think the Department of Ecology, IPG grant, even though there's no match, it's over $100,000. So that goes, would have continued to go to the city council. And then there are some amendments. And these amendments, Karen is also saying that the amendments, if with some minor tweaks, minor language clarification, to the current proposed language, these amendments that are highlighted, which is actually all 4 on this list here, would not need to necessarily go to council. And in this case, I believe all of these did not change the amount in any way. It was probably, extending the term of the agreement. It looks like. Yeah. And so the ones that would not then have gone would be, we got a grant to do the middle housing work. We got a grant to do a bunch of the feasibility studies and the Solar Plus for some facilities, the EV charging program, clean energy electrification, and then the Pioneer EV grant to the pilot station down at Pioneer. So under the current proposed language, those also would not necessarily have gone, the grant agreement themselves would not have gone to council. That doesn't mean we couldn't have, provided information about those in a different format or under a different, purpose, just as an informational piece or, good news story. But the grant agreement itself would not. So any thoughts about the grant agreements? Councilmember Swarthout.
Again, I just like to celebrate our successes. So if there's a way that, that we can, it's just been nice doing like when we've been having the department meetings lately and and I realize that's a yearly thing. So, but maybe leave it up to the department unless they decide, maybe like quarterly, or even if there's something new to, they can do it on a quarterly basis, or when they've got something new to report, or just, again, we just need to celebrate ourselves. And so the hard work that our staff does, and so that we are doing something, trying to do our best to address climate change here in Tumwater.
Absolutely. I think we need to do a better job of that all the way around. Councilmember Althauser?
Yeah, I feel sort of similarly to above, like these amendments, I think, are things that are fine, that can be handled administratively. Some of the grants below that, which are below the threshold, and that's why they wouldn't need councilmatic approval. Like some of those things I think do represent policy decisions. Like as a city, it is a policy that we have prioritized things like using solar power to reduce our carbon footprint, right? Like that's a policy choice that we've made that not all cities make, because maybe they have different values about the benefits of that or what have you. And that's also kind of a result of some of the planning and good work and excellent staff work that we have working on those things, to where it feels like because there's policy underlying the decision to pursue a grant about something like solar, that it makes sense that the legislative branch weigh in on accepting it. Maybe there's a future council that feels differently about EV charging, but I think I have a handle on how this council feels about that. So I think like accepting these things, maybe it's like $1 threshold that's much lower or something, but these seem like important things to me that we should be voting on, because it's a demonstration of the values that we have for the future of the city, in my opinion.
Okay. I appreciate that, and I think what I'm hearing is basically sort of the initial approval really as a way to not only accomplish the mechanics of approving the agreement, but really being able to be a statement of the city's perspective and policy position on things is important. But that amendments may not be. And so is it fair to say that if an amendment does not involve any dollars, that's okay if it doesn't go to council, but if there are amendments that obligate additional city resources, they should? Is that kind of where?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And also, so long as the amendment to it does not undermine the mission of the original reason why we pursued the grant, right? Like there's an amendment that basically says like, oh yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. Like just, it wouldn't involve new resources, but it would involve a significant departure from previous obligations. I'm not sure how we would try to finesse sort of undermining the spirit of an agreement, but that would be another sideboard that I think would be important to include if possible.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so when we go through the alphabet more than once, I'll remind everyone that a lot of these came back. So you have one last thing, right?
Yeah, just one more, the audit related documents. These are the ones that the auditor is telling us this is about how much money we expect to spend on your audit. And then they require us to have these data sharing agreements that are all related. And there's Troy, because he's going to come in here and help me explain these. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, I can add some additional context on these. So the audit engagement letter, I do recall a question a while back about those. And I think the question that was something to the effect of, well, how are we going to know that there's an audit? And that's important. Not only will I communicate to folks that there's an audit coming, but the auditor's office, they follow generally accepted government auditing standards. And those standards require that they have proof in their audit documentation that the governing body was informed of the audit. The way they do that is when we send out the invitations to the entrance and exit meetings, we send out, getting a little feedback. Can you guys hear me okay still?
Yeah, I'm not hearing any feedback, Troy.
Oh, okay. Good. Anyway, so they require us to send an invitation out to the council, and then we provide a copy of that email to them to show that all of the council members, the mayor, were informed of this audit meeting. And so the council will definitely be informed both at the beginning and the end of the audit. And then the other stuff, as Lisa mentioned, like the data share agreements, those are, the auditor's office did their work for 120 years without having those. And it was a new state law because of a data breach that they said, oh, you have to write this down. And so basically it's just, there's no money, it's kind of a technicality, really. And by having to take that to council, it just kind of slows down the audit a little bit. So anyway, that's the context on those. And if I didn't explain something well, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments on this? No? Okay, I think everyone's comfortable with that.
Okay, so I can forget how to, you're seeing how incapable I am with all this. Sorry about that. I will stop sharing. I think what I will do then is I can take these comments back to Karen and we can see if we can do this a little bit more refined in our approach to the language changes here. But honestly, the goal is just to be able to help us be more efficient and try to get these things through more quickly. But none of this has to happen. If the council is not comfortable with this does not have to happen. So we will bring it back at the next meeting, and that will be at the end of May, if that works for all of you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. That's all I had today, Mayor.
All right, so any additional items? All right, with that, we are adjourned, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thank you.